Welcome back to the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. I am Ryan Osborne here at Sherbeck Field, here for the Coaches Show. And you know what? It's been a couple weeks since we've been able to be out here with the football team, as we've been able to catch up with basketball, catch up with volleyball as well. But now we have the opportunity to go to Coach Garrett Campbell and also some of the coaching staff here with the Fullerton College Hornets to catch up with them on how the season is going so far. And actually, specifically, when you look at this last week for Fullerton College against San Bernardino Valley, they earned a big win, one that they really needed to get after that loss against El Camino. So, before we get to the interviews with Coach Garrett Campbell, let's actually get to the recap of how that game went last Thursday. So as we get set to take a look at Fullerton College and San Bernardino Valley, a reminder that Fullerton College was entering this San Bernardino Valley game looking for an opportunity to kind of get themselves back on the right foot. They had the bye week beneath their belts. They had the opportunity to rest, regroup, have a little bit of fun, as you'll hear more about in our interview with Coach Garrett Campbell, and they needed to get off on the right foot. Who did they go to immediately? Well, it was that guy who has been so good for them all season long from inside the 25-yard line, and it's Brandon Rankins. Rankins had himself an early touchdown in the first quarter, as you see here, that got Fullerton College on the board, and he is now currently top 5 in the entire state of California in terms of rushing touchdowns so far this season for the Fullerton College Hornets. If you're looking at this Fullerton College team and thinking to yourself, well, one thing that they've needed a lot in the past few weeks is that rushing attack to get going. Brandon Rankins does a lot of that in the first quarter to help that issue out for the Fullerton College Hornets. Now, Galban had a little bit of trouble in the early going. He ended up having a pick here, which would end up leading 2 points for San Bernardino Valley. San Bernardino Valley would eventually get themselves on the board on the ensuing drive. They got a field goal because Fullerton College was able to force a 3-and-out immediately following the pick, which was big for the defense to keep that momentum on the side of the Hornets. Once Fullerton College got themselves the ball back in the second quarter, they went right to Trey Edwards. Edwards showing that he was going to hand it off. Little miscommunication, doesn't matter. The Fullerton Hornets still end up in the end zone, and Fullerton goes up 14-0 at that point, 14-3 over the Wolverines. For Fullerton, a lot more decisive in the first half. That was a difference that we saw from Fullerton previously in the past few weeks, specifically against El Camino versus against San Bernardino Valley. The next time Fullerton had the ball, Trey Edwards said, you know what? I'm going to dial up my own number, and I'll take it in for a score myself. He got them to a 21-3 lead. Now, the Fullerton College defense ended up showing up pretty big this last Thursday against the Wolverines because not only did they get a few turnovers, but they had the opportunity to stop the Wolverines once they had a chance to get themselves on the board early. And it showed here. You get the pick. You end up getting a big return on it, nearly 60 yards, and it changes the momentum because the Wolverines to that point on that drive had already started to get themselves moving once again, getting a couple of first downs. How does Fullerton change things up immediately following the turnover? Just about one play later, they would find themselves in the end zone once again. Moore rushes it in, and all of a sudden Fullerton College finds themselves with a 28-3 lead, and a lead that they would not end up relinquishing the rest of the night. San Bernardino Valley, 9 first downs to Fullerton's 29. Fullerton was absolutely going off offensively. 50% third down efficiency for the Hornets, 447 yards of total offense, but you look at the rushing versus the passing. 153 in the air, 294 on the ground for Fullerton College. They average 5.9 yards per rush. On the other side for San Bernardino Valley, 27% on third down, 153 of total offense. You got to look at Fullerton College offense altogether. You look at the passing numbers, not necessarily what we're used to in terms of in the air type of stats. Chandler Galban, 7 of 13 for 70. Trey Edwards, 2 of 3 for 62 yards and a long of 48. But again, it was that rushing attack. 64 from Black. Green with 62. Brandon Rankins, 54. They had the opportunity to get themselves on the board and create their own momentum by getting those rushes in. And again, 294 yards of total rushing throughout the entire game. That was huge for Fullerton College. So Fullerton College ends up beating San Bernardino Valley by a final of 49-6 in what was a very decisive win for the Fullerton Hornets. 7 points in the first quarter, 28 in the second, 14 in the third, and they would be shut out in the fourth. But again, they had the lead. They wouldn't relinquish it, 49-6. So once again, that was the recap of the San Bernardino Valley game just this last week. So as we get set for this upcoming matchup against Southwestern, let's talk to Coach Garrett Campbell, head coach of the Fullerton College Hornets. We are here with head coach Garrett Campbell. And Coach, when you look at this last week against San Bernardino Valley, how do you think you guys responded after that El Camino game going into San Bernardino?
Well, I think what they did was a great job of just kind of doing their job. I think against El Camino, we left a lot of points on the field, and I think guys were worried about other things instead of just doing their job. They're 1 of 11 on the field, and I think at times they were trying to do 2 jobs instead of just 1, and that's on offense, defense, and special teams. And I think our guys did a much better job of just doing what they were supposed to do, whether it was slant to a gap, whether it was block out on a defender, whatever it was. I think that's what they did, and I think we challenged them. Obviously, we had about a week and a half for that game to prepare, but we challenged them with that, and they did a great job.
When you look at that matchup against San Bernardino Valley, the running game looked electric, to say the least. What changed?
Electric, huh?
I like electric.
Okay, I'm going with it. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but the guys did what they were supposed to do, and it was on both sides of the ball. So you talk about our running game. I assume you mean our running game being electric. Our offensive line. Not only did they do just their job and what they were responsible for, but they did it in a violent manner, which is extremely important, right? They got push off the ball. But I also think the flip side is true for the defense. I think the defense did I think they played electric on the defensive line because they were getting to their gaps. They were doing the things they should do. So I think it was really not just our run game on offense. It was really both ways, quite honestly.
You talk about the offensive line, and that's one thing. If you go up against a team like Southwestern, their defensive line is one of their strengths. If you talk to their coaching staff and other teams around the SCFA, when you look at your offensive line, do you feel that could be an X factor this Saturday?
Well, I think we're like everybody else right now. We're battling injuries. So, what our offensive line was last Thursday when we play San Bernardino and what it will be this Saturday when we play Southwestern might look a little different. But guys are battling through it. And so I think what will help us a ton is the fact that we have some depth on the offensive line, which is hard at this level to get good depth. But we've also played those guys. So those guys have gotten reps throughout. So if they weren't a starter and they are going to start maybe this week for the first time, they've already played quality reps and are ready to play. And I think that helps a ton. And I think so. Being an X factor, I hope so. I hope it's a great deal for us. But the truth is, no matter who we put out there, I think they'll be ready to play because our depth has allowed us to just roll through quite a few guys.
How do you prepare for a team like Southwestern who technically rolls 3 guys, but on Saturday they pulled out a 4th quarterback?
Just play ball. Quite honestly, it puts a little more pressure on a guy like Coach Crooks to make sure that he knows what it is that they're doing and how to prepare for each quarterback because they are a little bit different in their skill sets, right? But quite honestly, look, I worked for a guy a long time ago who said at the end of the day, football is about stick and drive and stick and shed. So you're either driving the guy off the ball or you're trying to get off the block. And that's really what it comes down to. So what all the guys on our defense got to do that. And so it doesn't matter who's got the ball, who's throwing the ball, whatever, they got to do that. So you still got to play football, but it's the coach's job to kind of make sure that the plays or the calls are going to be right per that quarterback.
Last time we talked to you, you were talking about from a staff standpoint, game management was something that you guys wanted to kind of tune up on your own level. How do you think that has gone ever since the last time we talked?
Very well. We made some changes after the Canyons game to kind of streamline not only our staff in terms of our game day management, but in terms of our player management on the sideline as well, and things like that just kind of allowed us to be more efficient as a program. And I feel really comfortable and confident that we've done some of that, and I feel pretty good. Our sideline is as hyped as it can be at times. It's very much in control and understanding situations or overall just more efficient.
One thing that was pretty different, we'll say, to notice, especially on social media lately, is the fact that you lighten things up at practice. A couple weeks back, you guys even had a slip and slide out here.
We did.
What do you think that does for the team mentality to be able to have those opportunities?
Well, I think like we were out today and dancing. I know you saw that. I was not dancing very well. I danced a little bit, but not very well. Here's what it does. We're past the midway point of the season. At the end of the day, this game is meant to be fun, and we work really hard. And you see us, we're going year round, and we're doing what we can all the time. And it can grind, and it can really grind on a coach, and can grind on a player. And some of these players are maybe from out of state, and they haven't been home to see their families in 6 months. Just having a little bit of fun, cutting it loose, enjoying practice, smiling. It's important. At the end of the day, it's important. And being happy, doing what you're doing. And look, we have 22 guys start, but we shoot 85, 90 guys. But only 22 start. Those other guys got to love what they're doing. They got to love their brothers. They got to love the coaches. And not that everybody's going to get along, right? I come from a big family. Not that everybody gets along all the time. Trust me, we fight, but we love each other. And I think at the end of the day, I think dancing and having fun is an important part of just making sure you're just enjoying each other's company. And when you do that, you really you kind of focus your energy a little more on what it is that you're supposed to do, whether it be your technique, your fundamentals, or your assignment.
Coach, I mean, you mentioned the grind for these students and then also the coaching staff. One thing that isn't necessarily harped on enough, especially at the college level, is the mental health aspect for these athletes and for you guys as well.
Without doubt.
How do you keep these guys mentally healthy going into the back half of a schedule?
Well, and I'll take it a step further. How do you keep them mentally healthy in the back half of a schedule when there's very limited services on campus and the young men are just showing up because they've got online classes all day long and they're showing up for practice, and that's all they really know of Fullerton College at times is just maybe the dining hall because they're getting a breakfast or a lunch. They haven't had it. Some of them haven't had in-person classes since they've been here, and they've been here over a year. Training camp at any level is a grind, okay? You wake up early, you stay up till late for meetings and all that. It's a grind, and it's a grind usually for 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on what level you're at. Our guys are dealing with a little bit of that. They get up in the morning, they do their online schooling, and then they come to practice, and it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, right? It's the same thing almost every day, and that is a big part of what we've got to deal with our guys. So it's really imperative that our coaches are checking in with them, talking to them, just having meetings with them, just, hey, how you doing? Are you struggling? We have a life coach who helps a lot with that. But you know what? That is an important part of it, and not just from a football standpoint, but just from a life perspective, right? And so making sure that our young men are able to get any sort of services they might need, counseling services or whatever it may be, And I know we just saw him run off here, but Juan Cuevas, our athletic trainer, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if you've interviewed him, but you need to interview him because he does not get enough credit for the things he does, because now when you have an injury and that young man is, already struggling, maybe missing family or what have you, that can compound. And I call it Injury Island. So now this young man is stuck on Injury Island because he's out here by himself when his team is, still going about their business. And, I think that stuff is extremely important. I think we constantly talk to our guys about, just enjoying what they're doing, enjoying their friends, enjoying the people they're around. Yes, we compete our tails off, but enjoy it because it won't last forever. So,
Coach, how
long-winded answer for a short question, but
no, but Coach,
that's something I'll be honest with you, that's something I'm very passionate about is the mental health of our young people, and not just our football players. I teach stress management classes here at Fullerton College, and that's a big deal to me, and because I deal with it on a daily basis, and unfortunately I teach online, and so I read what our young people are saying, and for the last year and a half, 18 months, whatever it's been, this has been a struggle, and our young men have an outlet in terms of football, but a lot of young people don't have an outlet. So, sorry.
No, but Coach, I mean, you mentioned that Injury Island for a guy who has gone through training camp, has been here, maybe hasn't seen his family for months, and then all of a sudden they get that injury. How do you keep them involved with this team so that way they don't feel like they're alone in what they're doing?
Yeah, so I think one of the ways I try and do it is if I know a kid is in that boat, obviously I see him in the training room, we talk, but just shooting him a text. You know, it's sometimes it's as simple as sending a text message and saying, hey, keep your head up. I know where you're at. I know what's going on. We'll be okay. Come by and see me. And sometimes you just come by and see and just let them know, like, look, I'm with you. I know it sucks. And the hardest part is when a young man gets hurt, it's the uncertainty, right? Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days before they can get into the doctors, get an MRI, whatever it may be. It's the uncertainty that causes the stress. And it's not so much that he got hurt, but it's I don't know what this means for the rest of my playing career. I don't know what this means for the rest of my career at Fullerton College. What does it mean? And nobody's got those answers right then. So for that 2 or 3 days especially, that's tough on that young man. So I think it's imperative as coaches to make sure that we're talking to those young guys and making sure that they understand they're not alone. You're not the first person to ever get hurt in football. We all have. And yes, it absolutely sucks. But we have resources, we have people. Let's work through it.
Coach, when you look at how social media has kind of affected athletes, then you mix it in with the mental health aspect. In addition to them maybe not having had that on or in-person class so far on campus, how do you think social media has an effect on these guys when they don't have that possibility to interact in person as much?
Yeah, I think in two ways, quite honestly. One, I think it can be a distraction. It can be a huge distraction. It's easy to go on social media and then sit there and scroll through or whatever. I don't know what they all do. I'm on a little bit of it, but I'm not like they are, right? Like I see my daughters and what they do, but you know, it's easy to sit there and just start scrolling through, and next thing you know, you've wasted an hour of your life on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, whatever the next big one's going to be. But I also think the second part is this. The second part is nobody ever posts like negative stuff about what's going on, right? They post the perfect life. I've got 18 offers. I've got this. I've got that. I know for a fact I've seen guys post offers that I know for a fact they didn't get. But the way social media is, nobody's going to tell them, no, you didn't get offered by them, or no, that didn't happen. NCAA schools aren't allowed to even discuss potential recruits. So they can't say anything. So all of a sudden you see this kid, all they've got offers. Well, that may be true, but it may not be true as well. They get distracted sometimes because I'm better than that guy, or I'm better than that guy. They think that the world can get a little jaded, we'll say. When the truth is, if they just stick to what it is they're doing and play their tails off and practice their tails off, it's going to work out. The problem is with social media, everything is immediate, right now. Sometimes it takes 6 months. Sometimes it takes a year. And that's where trying to get through to our guys to understand it's okay. It's all part, we talk about a lot. It's part of the process. It's part of the process. And once that starts to click and they stop judging themselves based on other people's social media, then their life gets a lot better.
Is that something that you have to kind of instill in the first few meetings when they come out of high school?
I think it's something you have to constantly talk about even out of high school. I think you just, even guys who are returning guys, I think they're at just different stages along the way. But I don't think it's one of those things that, I can go on social media and I look at, well, why can't I remodel my kitchen that way? Really, like my wife, why can't we do that? And I go, okay, let's talk about it, let's figure it out, And so you can even get that way as an adult, right? So I think just constantly reminding our guys that, look, just do your job. Focus on what you got, and you'll be okay. But it takes a while.
Speaking of doing their job, Garrett, best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
So we're here with 2016 National Champion Austin McGehee. And Austin, in 2016, you and I were able to talk here on the Coaches Show, and it was all about the mental aspect of kicking and punting as well.
Yes, sir.
When you look at the mental aspect that these kickers and punters have for Fullerton College, how do you make sure that they are ready for each game, not get too far inside their heads?
Junior college is special, man. Everybody here is from a different part of the country. We got guys from local. We got guys, guys that wouldn't particularly find themselves in a special teams role, primarily. You got guys that are working coverage. You got guys that are, kicking, holding. There's so many aspects that go into it that you don't see when you're, playing. Now it's 50% mental, you know what I mean? I think that the best way for them to get reps out of COVID was to play games. And with our position in particular, man, it's just been tough because I think that mental preparation is half the battle. And I think that, these guys out here, man, they're all new to this program, so it's tough. It's tough, but the team all around looks focused in, looks dialed in. The mental aspect has caught up with us as the season has progressed, right? Like we look much better as we keep going. So I think repetition. Repetition's the biggest thing, man, and you can't supplement game experience. So that's the biggest thing.
You look at the punting position. One thing that you and I talked about off camera all those years that you were here is punting is an art form. It's not just, I got the ball, I kicked the ball, we're good to go. It's an art form that you guys have different types of punts that you have for each situation.
It's like being a golfer. You got your 7 wedge, you got your pitching wedge, you got your 9 iron, you got your driver if you got to hit it deep, but it's a craft. It's truly a craft. Along with snapping, holding, all of it. It's so critical because, we find ourselves playing a game 45-6, we don't really need it, but, we're in a tight game 29-27 like American River,
right.
We need it. So I think it's just part of the game, man. It's part of the game, and I'm happy to be here with you guys, man. I had a good ride with it.
You mentioned that championship game against American River. One thing that was actually really big in that run were the special teams for Fullerton College. When you look at not only how you perform, but also now helping athletes get the opportunity to perform at big levels, what's one thing that you work with them when you first start off coaching?
Like you said earlier, like the mental aspect especially, and I think also too, especially with young guys, man, they just don't know what they don't know because it's such a critical thing being this age and not understanding, hey, I'm not in high school anymore. This game really counts for all the marbles, and special teams has got to be automatic, and I just think that, I think you just can't supplement experience, but most importantly, man, you can't coach that inner will to win, you know what I mean? And I think that the biggest aspect of special teams has been, this year especially with us, has been just trying to figure out our identity, figuring out the identity of our special teams, because like you said, with that run, we had it figured out. So I think just figuring everything out with special teams dynamic and understanding that, the kickers are football players too. The snappers, you're football players too. And it's like Coach Campbell. Coach Campbell is very, very in tune with making sure that the guys feel like they're part of the team. And I think that's critical as a head coach. He's very involved, treats the guys like they're one of the star players, and that's critical. That's critical.
You mentioned an identity for the special teams. How are you guys discovering that for this season?
I just think you got to credit this coaching staff, man. Like, Coach Austin, Coach Griff, Coach Crooks, those guys, man, they keep it down to a science. And as much as I like to do 1 or 2 reps and get out, we've been focusing primarily on just making everybody better. And we've all, as a group, just uplifted as the season's gone on, man. It's been an adventure for me because I'm used to automatic, but, I'll take it.
You look at chemistry and how big of an aspect it plays, how big of a role it plays in special teams. You as a punter, how do you make sure that you're on the same page with your snapper, your coverage guys as well?
I think it's just, honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with your preparation as an individual, because while you might think nobody's watching this ball or nobody's watching the snap, internally, the game is not played on that one snap. It's played every single rep. So it's all about crafting yourself to do the same thing every single time. And then the nerves, the nerves go away after a couple times, right? So
you want to talk about nerves. How do you look at an athlete, a special teams player, kicker or a punter, or even a snapper as well, knowing, hey, mistakes are going to happen. A muffed snap is going to happen. A missed field goal, a muffed or a shanked punt is going to happen as well. How do you tell them, hey, that's going to happen. It's okay to turn that page?
So excellent question, man. Excellent question. The biggest thing is just getting the guy to understand short memory is a real thing for quarterbacks with interceptions. The same thing, missing a kick, missing a snap, because your number will inevitably always get called again, right? It's how you will answer. So I just think it's all about, learning from your mistakes like in anything else in life, man. Like, you learn from your misses. Your L's are not losses, they're lessons. And so that's the biggest thing.
When you as a punter got one that you felt just boomed off your leg. Is that something that can help a kicker or a punter going forward throughout the rest of the game?
Definitely, 100%. 100%. And, you know, with my guys this year especially, it's been critical that we've gotten better each week. And it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint, man. It's a marathon. And I think that's more. It's more fluid as the weeks go on with the kickers and punters in any other position, because, like, we might get 10 reps out here and the quarterbacks get 100, but it's all about responding and mentally locking in. You know, you got to be mentally tough to do this job, man. It's not for the weak.
You look at how these guys have performed so far this year. Is there one thing in particular that you look at this field goal unit and say, we've got to improve on this?
It's hard as a volunteer, but when you look at it, you can obviously see there's things that the guys ain't more confident in doing. I think it's all about timing ourselves up and just putting the pieces together, because they're all there. We have the right pieces. It's just playing the chess game right, you know what I mean? Because it's inevitably going to be called again. We're going to have it in the game. So just making sure the guys are ready, making sure as a team we believe in our guys, and that we're putting the best guys out there to do the job every time.
Is there one thing that you see that's a common occurrence in terms of habits from a high schooler just going into junior college?
I think it's just tough, man. I think that a lot of these guys, like, they know they're going to play college football, but the expectations at this school are different. You know, the level of what we call, elite at this school is different. And I think that a lot of guys, come into this program not understanding how big of a role they play. And the guys like Jesse, John Aguilar, those guys, and, Casey, Nick O'Toole, if I'm leaving somebody out, I'm sorry, but we have a pedigree here at special teams. And I think that, it's only going to increase as we get out of COVID. The guys will get better. The gray shirts will be better next year. But, man, it's just about having fun and understanding this is a special group, special place to be. This is the mecca of junior college football in California. And I think that guys have to understand that, and then it makes the want to, happen. So.
The last time you and I talked on the Coaches Show, you were a player for a national championship team. Now all of a sudden you're looking at it as that experienced guy who gives tips and availability to other young players who want to follow in your footsteps. How has that change been for you?
I think for me personally, just speaking in terms of myself, I learn a lot from these kids, man. And I think as a coach, we all try to keep playing the game in our own unique way. But more importantly, I've kind of put that down and said, okay, it's not about me, it's about the guys. And so if I can help somebody, get into Fullerton College or help somebody get into UCLA or whatever that is, man, it's such an inevitable gift that, being a coach is a sacred mantle. And I've just been very fortunate to have a lot of good guys come through, and fortunate to have a hand in this program where I can help. So,
considering that you have those leaders underneath you right now, getting set to take on Southwestern on Saturday, is there one thing that the special teams can do to give an advantage to the rest of the team this Saturday?
Absolutely. The last time we played Southwest, I believe they scored 13, we scored 19. It was a tough game. They generally, they're a clock-killing team, man. And, it's like I told Bobby, our punter, this week. Last week you had one punt, shades of me with, like, Moore Park, and then you got to turn around next week and play Mount Sac or something, like we know with this team, his number will be called. So the biggest thing is just getting out of last week. How do we adapt to going from 1 punt a game to 8 punts a game, maybe 5 PATs, 2 field goals a game to, maybe 4. So I think this week especially, you'll see the guys' opportunities be cut down a little bit, but we'll really see what the guys are made of whenever it comes to the nitty-gritty.
Austin, thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you very much. God bless you.
You got it. So once again, we want to thank Coach Garrett Campbell and Austin McGehee as well for joining us here on the Coaches Show. Fullerton College this upcoming Saturday, they play Southwestern all the way down in Chula Vista. This is a Southwestern team that just this past week on Saturday got shut out 45-0 against Golden West College. In a game that was on our sister station sportsnetusa.net, Southwestern had a lot of trouble getting their offense going. So the question is, can Fullerton keep that rolling this Saturday? The offense for Southwestern wasn't able to get over 200 yards gained altogether last Saturday. When we talked to some of the coaches here off camera, that sentiment was kind of shared. Hey, if we look at this Southwestern team, we got to make sure that we keep them more contained. Specifically, you look at their defense as well for Southwestern. The offensive line is going to be crucial for Fullerton College in making sure that they can open up a lot of lanes against these Jaguars. So, Fullerton College, Southwestern, this Saturday, coming up on our sister station, sportsnetusa.net. I'm Ryan Osborne, thanking you for joining us. This This has been the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK.